there's a much bigger thing here with China. So I read the One Nation Under Blackmail, the first book in my book club, and the link for that's in the description. But one of the craziest things I saw in there was that, often it said China steals our intellectual property, but there's a lot of cases where they're given our technology, like a technology transfer, illegally, either by bribing people or to, threat that doesn't already exist so we could justify spending. But there's been a lot of talk lately about how even though we banned NVIDIA semiconductor chips from going to China, they still ended up there. So that reminded me a lot of this situation that I saw in this book with Bill Clinton and a lot of the people that around him that are no longer with us, like Ron Brown, who died in the plane crash, the Secretary of Commerce, that basically facilitated technology transfers to China with satellites and computer chips and data tracking software that they didn't already have. Like, had no capacity to do digital payments before the 90s, but Clinton administration got them the ability to do digital payments. They gave them satellite capabilities, missile technology. So what the hell is the purpose of that? And then right after that administration, economy has liftoff. So this is a thing that's been going on for a long time now. And when I see that China is now, NVIDIA's stock is tanking because China now has saying that Huawei can basically do what NVIDIA is doing. I don't think that's something that happened by themselves, like their own. I think this is still going on. And they were talking about this the other day on the All In podcast, where like tons of ways that China essentially gets technology from the United States because it's just profitable to tap into China's market, to access China's market. So let's see. Where's the story? Huawei, NVIDIA stock goes from like 194 on news that Huawei is getting into the game. Huawei. Here we go. Oh, and this is important too. So take a look at this. This is really what put me onto this one. Boom. So look how China's narrowing the gap with us in the AI race. So performance of the top US and Chinese AI models, language, whatever, LMSYS arena. So look at the gap just in January 2024 to February 2025. Why is that happening? DeepSeek reduced the gap while US also being open sourced. But you need chips to do that, right? So look, NVIDIA chips in China. How did that in China? China's Huawei develops new AI chips seeking to match NVIDIA. Huawei Technologies is gearing up to test its newest and most powerful artificial intelligence processor, which the company hopes could replace some higher-end products of U.S. chip giant NVIDIA. The steady advance by one of China's flagship technology companies points to resilience of the country's semiconductor industry despite efforts by Washington to stymie it, including by cutting off access to some Western chip-making equipment. Huawei has approached some Chinese tech companies about testing the technical feasibility of the new chip called the Ascent 9D. People familiar with the matter said that the company is slated to receive the first batch of samples of the processor, but as soon as late May, some of the people said the development is still at an early stage and the series of tests will be needed to assess the chip's performance and get it ready for customers. People said Huawei hopes that its latest iteration of its Ascent AI processor will be more powerful than NVIDIA's H100, a popular chip used for AI training that was released in 2022, said one of the people. Previous versions are called 910B, right? So essentially what it's saying is that Huawei now has the technology that NVIDIA has. But that's funny because just a year ago, China didn't have the intellectual or industrial to make these chips. They weren't advanced enough to do that. So how the hell did they miraculously get the ability to do this in a year? I think it has something to do with the fact that NVIDIA chips were getting smuggled to China when they weren't supposed to be. NVIDIA chips smuggled to China. U.S. prompts NVIDIA probe into how chips ended up in China. Information reports. December 19th, 2024, U.S. Department of Commerce has recently asked NVIDIA to look into how the company's products ended up in China over the past year. The information report on Tuesday, citing a person close to the department, the chip giant has asked big distributors such as Supermicro and Dell Technologies to conduct spot checks of their customers in Southeast Asia. The report said NVIDIA's artificial intelligence chips are embedded in server products and made by Supermicro and Dell. The information reported that 5 different people involved in smuggling NVIDIA chips said that they managed so far to evade detection during recent inspections by Supermicro. We insist that our customers and partners strictly adhere to all export control restrictions. Any unauthorized deviation of previously owned products, including any gray market resales, would be burdened, blah, 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 blah. So they're giving them the runaround, and it looks a whole lot like, I don't know if NVIDIA was, but somebody made sure that China was still getting these NVIDIA chips, and then they reverse engineered it, and now Huawei has the ability to make them, and then now DeepSeek has the ability to do what ChatGPT does. So we're helping China keep up with us in the AI race, just like we easily subsidized the Soviet Union to be able to justify the Cold War, because without us subsidizing them, they wouldn't have been even strong enough to function on their own, let alone be like a feasible or considerable rival to us. So like, it's a pattern. I see the same thing going on here. Like, we're propping China up. We need to be like, they would have never been even close to where they're right now without our help. And then they wouldn't be close to us right now if we weren't blowing air into them and pushing them along. And like, it's like the TV show called The Boys, when I don't know if you saw it before, but like when the superheroes don't get a contract, they want to be like defense contractors. They bring this Compound X to like terrorists in the Middle East to like give them superpowers too. So then the military can't fight them by themselves, and they go to them and say like, oh, hey, we actually do need, so we're gonna give you the contract. So like, sometimes when you don't get what you want, you give the dangerous thing to the enemy so that the people with the money and the ability to give you contracts give you what you want. So I'm not saying it's definitely that, but it seems a whole lot like it could be that. But what do I know?